to watch what Ted is talking about on Channel 1. And we will start in just a few moments. Okay, I'm sitting here with Ted Tompson, and we are ready to talk a little more about the lanes here in the Plus Bowling Center. And, yes, you can get the next picture on the screen. And Ted, what is it we look at here?
Yeah, this is a new tool developed by Kegel. It's called the Lane Mapper. And what it does is it takes measurements of the lane. Every bowling lane in the world has little shapes to it, much like a golf green. They're not as obvious to the eye when you look at all the lanes that are very similar. But this tool here gives us, every lane has what they call depressions or crowns, highs and lows, and the lanes have little tilts to them, left and right tilts. And they also have some lengthwise tilts. So what this tool here allows us to do is capture all those highs and low spots on the lane, and also the tilts. It will capture the highs and lows of every board going across the lane. And a bowling lane consists of 39 boards. And we get a cross tilt read and a lengthwise level read. So we can basically capture over 750 measurements in about 10 minutes of each bowling lane, and then we can plot what those are, and then we develop graphs, which we can talk about in a little bit.
Yes.
The next graph, this particular graph is actually of the oil pattern. We have two custodian ion lane machines here, and this applies the protective coating to the lane in way of lane oil. And lane oil is comprised mostly of mineral oil, about 80 to 85% mineral oil. And then there's some additives in there to allow it to be a little slipperier or allow it to wet the lane surface a little bit more so it bonds to the lane surface. And different lane oils are developed for different types of environments. Every place in the world is a little bit different. And so we develop lane patterns or lane oil for different environments. And the lane oil we're using here this week for the European youth is one of our what we call high performance oils. It tends to hold up very well for the high tech bowling balls. This particular pattern we're using is actually almost identical to what the European men bowled on here in the summertime. We lengthen it out 1 foot for this particular environment at this moment, and because of the women that are in the tournament. And we have a single condition tournament. During the European Men's Championship, it was a dual oil pattern tournament, so we had to have one that was a little longer and one was a little shorter. Being a single condition tournament, we try to stay more in the medium range to give more styles an opportunity to succeed. So we kind of kept the same shape of the oil pattern, we just lengthened it one foot for the more styles here. So that's the oil pattern that's on the lane. And the next slide you're going to see is an example of the slope graphs, and I'll set this up a little bit. This is a color-coded graph. Oh boy, nice music. I cannot think. But this is a color-coded graph, and this is actually an example of what the lane mapper can give us. And what we've done with the color-coded is kind of just tried to make it so that the green area is fairly neutral. That means there's not a lot of influence on the bowling ball.
Okay.
The blue areas, if you could picture, is a slope to the right. And the darker the area, the more of a slope there is. And what we've taken all those measurements the lane mapper has given us, and so we actually can calculate the slope of every board. And every board is about 1 inch wide. And so we can calculate how much slope is to each board, and that's why you see some areas of the lane is neutral, some have a little slope, and some have a little bit more slope. The darker the color, the more side slope there is, and the more influence to the bowling ball. So basically, the blue colors are slopes to the right, or they're low right, high left, and the red color spectrums are slopes to the left, or they're high right and low left. And that's kind of what the bowling ball sees on the lane. When it's rolling down the lane, it's going to see those little undulations on the lane, just like a golf ball rolling on a green would do. The bowling ball does the same thing. It's just, like I said, it's not as apparent to the eye, but the bowling ball for sure reacts to those slopes. And so what we have here in Plus Bowling is a very unique situation, but kind of a common situation. The slope graphs that you're looking at right now is an example of the way the lanes are now. So if we look at those slope graphs, we see basically in the middle of the lane there's a break. We see a lot of blue colors on the left side of the lane, and we see red colors on the right side of the lane. So basically what that means is from the center lane to the right, the lane is sloped toward the center. And as you can see, the darker colors are really towards the outside. So that's where the slope really begins, and it's real heavy there, and then it starts to flatten out. And then once it gets to the center, it's actually at the bottom of, I guess if you could call it a ditch or a valley, yeah? The center is kind of the bottom of the valley, and then it starts rising back up to the left side. So we kind of got a bowl shape basically here. And it's very aggressive at the bowling center right now because of the simple fact that underneath these synthetic panels is a wood lane. It used to be a wood lane here. They coated it with synthetic overlays. And what those panels do is take the shape of what's underneath them. So in the wintertime, when the heat is on in the building and it's colder and all the humidity comes out of the air, the humidity also comes out of the wood. So what happens is we get like, I guess the best way to explain it is an accordion effect or a piano key. The boards of the wood kind of sink down, and then the panel takes that shape and gives us that bowl effect. In the summertime, during the men's championship, we had the exact opposite effect. There's actually the woods, the humidity was much higher. It's about 65% in the summer versus 20% right now in this bowling center. So the wood swells up, and then it pushes the panel up. And that totally changes the playing characteristics of the lane conditions, even though the oil pattern is basically exactly the same. And so in the men, in the summertime, we had a lot of blue colors on the far outside on the right side, which meant the slope was toward the gutter. So when the ball got to the outside of the lane, it tended to it wanted to fall off. We call it a hang spot, where it kind of just wiggled and had a harder time hooking back to the pocket or the center of the lane. But now that hang spot is not there. So the ball, it's just like driving a car on a racetrack. You know, if you have a flat track and you're trying to take a turn, well, it's harder to navigate that turn. And so on a racetrack, you try to bank it towards the center. Well, it's easier for the car to turn. Same with the lanes that are shaped right now. It's easier for the bowling ball to make that turn. Conversely, if that slope was, the banking was away from the corner, then it would be harder to make the corner. And that's what we had in the summer. So you're seeing the youth actually score higher now than the best men in Europe, for the simple fact that the lane surface has totally changed character, changed the shape. And so these slope graphs are real revolutionary, because in bowling, just up until a few years ago, we never had this lane mapper tool. We had to measure by hand, and then we would have to plot all those points. Well, you can imagine measuring one lane and plotting 744 points, it would take a long time. So nobody ever really did it. The lane mapper is an invention that allows us to do that. We create these 2D color-coded slope graphs, and now we really see what's influencing the ball motion under the oil pattern. A lot of people put a lot of importance, a lot of emphasis on the oil pattern, but believe it or not, the oil pattern